pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items to the board members. If anywhere along the way, since I'm new at being chair, you feel that I need to back up on a procedural issue, please interrupt me and get me straight. I'd rather do it right than find out later on I should have done something and create a mess for everybody. Okay. Secondly, anybody in the audience who has a cell phone, make sure it's either muted or off. Okay, the first and only order of business. We've got an application for a variance. I want you to know that the staff report that came out was mistitled, so it is a variance. It's a request for a variance from Article 3, Section 304 of the zoning ordinance to construct a garage with a studio apartment and septic system on an existing non-conforming lot. Due to the topography, the driveway location, and the available septic area, applicant states that there is a need to position the structure such that it encroaches 5 feet into the required 15-foot setback. The applicant states that all abutters are in support of the proposed encroachment. Parcel 201-015 is located past the end of the town-maintained portion of Loon Lake Road. Thus, the only frontage is via a private road. This parcel lies within the agricultural zoning district. Who's going to speak for the... Kevin?
Have enough plans up there?
For the record, Kevin French for the proponent. Thank you.
This is the lot in question, 0.26 acres. This is the existing gravel drive that runs through, and it actually ends at this lot here, which is a lot owned by Brian and Karen Young. At this time, what the applicants are looking to do is they own this lot as well. They're looking to construct a garage that they would set up against this setback line, and going parallel with this line, it would put this back corner in the setback by 5 feet. There is, to give you the overall history of this development, these lots were done originally on they first appear in a 1949 survey called the Baldwin Estate, done by Ike Trajano. That plan was not recorded, and despite my efforts, I've been able to find a copy of it, but they started conveying basically 13 lots that ran along this Loon Lake Road. They were all about 100 by 100, and they went on. And the ones on the lake side of the road were a little longer because the lake wasn't parallel with the road exactly. They were started. The first lot was conveyed in '49, and then they were conveyed on through into the '60s and beyond. But the subdivision essentially started in 1949. At that time, the road was laid out, right of way was laid out, and the deeds all refer to going to the right of way. And that was laid out right through here, which I think I have, which is like this. That was the original layout of the right of way. In 2012, they went, the road was constructed in this area, and I suspect it was because when you got out here, you ran into a hunk of ledge. And so the road over time was constructed right here. In 2012, they did an adjustment, and they changed with the agreement of these owners, they changed the right-of-way to follow the existing Loon Lake Road. So this area shown here is where it exists today. They have a 30-foot right-of-way. One of the things that they were going to do with this, and again, the neighbors were in agreement with this, is they were going to shift the right-of-way 5 feet southerly. So it still was 30 feet, but it's 5 feet southerly. Because if they didn't, it would go, the right-of-way went through the deck of the house. So they've agreed to do that. And the other thing that again, the history, there was an existing well here that presently serves this house. The well radius of that well takes up almost the entire lot. They've got an agreement with the neighbors, the Gargases. They're giving them the right to drill a new well up here off-site and have water rights to it and a protected well radius around. They've agreed, the Gargases have agreed to grant them the well right and the radius, and Brian and Karen have agreed to give them a well release radius on their property too. They want to have a studio apartment above this building, and the only area to put the septic is on this boundary line, which Gary Ladd, who owns this lot, and he's agreed to give them an easement to go up to the property line for that septic. So the neighbors have, in this area, I guess it takes a village to build a garage, but all the neighbors have been, have worked very, very well with them and been very accommodating to do that. And I thought Gary was going to be here, but they're all, including the Gargases, are all in favor of in support of the variance. And the need for it really basically is because by this road being where it is and the lot being what it is, there's only this small area that's available for building. We're keeping this area green. There's nothing and part of this, keeping this green is because that satisfies the requirement for shoreland of you have to keep a certain amount of green space within the 50 to 125 foot buffer area. So we're keeping that green space to accommodate that. And I think, well, I've got copies, but this is, which I could give you, this is what it's going to look like, minus they were going to originally have a back porch on the back of it, but that would have extended to the property line, so they took that off. So that part doesn't exist anymore. So this would be the front looking toward the road, and this would be the side as you came in this way. And again, that 10-foot porch has been removed. So the only thing we'd be looking for is this 5-foot variance in the corner. And the other thing is, with these lots, and this extends even down around the corner going towards the other end of the road. There's been other variances like this granted for setback things because, quite frankly, I don't think most of the lots out there don't meet the setbacks. Most of the places on them don't meet the setbacks anyway, be it the road setback or the sideline setbacks or something like that. So basically, we're looking to get that relief. It's in keeping with the neighborhood. Everybody's in favor of it, and it's in keeping with what's been granted out there before. And due to all the constraints of the lot, that's basically the only place they can build something.
Anything else?
Well, I can go through the.
Well, let's see if there are any technical questions that people want to ask.
Yeah.
Any of the board members have a technical question they want to ask about the proposal?
Kevin?
Yeah,
So this is, I was up there and it's where they dug out, the foundation's already dug out, they got it blasted out.
right, well, they've done excavating in there, yeah.
Yeah, because that's, they were gonna go with the garage first, and then they came up with this idea, or?
Well, no, actually, they were doing, they planned on having the garage, but
Right.
it's come along, it's been a long process, one
Sure.
thing at a time. The well was the first obstacle that we had to overcome, because we had to find, you know,
That's a problem.
with the existing well there, we couldn't do anything.
Yeah,
So they finally got an agreement on that. And then they had started working the lot last fall, I think.
in the septic area there, you found something that's like such ledge there. I
No,
mean,
well, first of all, when they dug it, they piled the ledge over here. There's actually a good area along the boundary line where we got a pretty good test pit.
Oh, it is?
And actually, when we first looked at this, because, you know, we looked at different things. When we first looked at with the well here, we looked at, well, can we tuck a septic system on here? Well, this part, which they blasted, was all ledge. So you couldn't get a septic in there. So the only place that it was, you know, suitable for one was on that boundary line.
And this abutting lot here, Ladd family,
Yep.
is that a buildable lot too?
It's a separate, I believe it's a separate lot of record.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when this well that exists now has an easement, a protective easement around it. When this well is done, that easement goes away.
Okay,
And when the well goes away too. So,
yeah,
so that will be removed, and then it won't encompass that lot anymore either. And Ladd's own this lot, and this lot.
they do.
Does the well and the septic take care of provide water and manage the sewage for the existing house, or just the proposed new house?
The existing house has an existing septic system right here.
Okay.
Okay, and when this is done, this well will service this house and this.
And the other, okay.
Kevin,
Yes.
why don't you need a variance for the front setback?
Well, that's a good question.
That's why I asked.
And it all depends on what we count as, if it's a right-of-way, a driveway, or a road, or anything like that. And we would be fully prepared to make a request for that, because if we didn't, which I can show you on this, well, you can't really see it really good, but if I took the 30-foot setback from, if I took a 30-foot setback from the existing right-of-way, where it is now, it comes right through here.
Yeah.
And if we moved it 5 feet, it comes right through here. So I don't, you know, if I put all the setbacks in, there's no lot left to build on. If I go that, but if we need a variance for that, then, you know, I would go for it, add it. However, that was a question that kind of came up later on what to do about that and how to address that road issue.
Yeah.
Kevin, when were these lots purchased?
What do you mean, originally?
No, the present owners.
I think, let's see, when did they,
I think 2013.
okay, yeah.
It says what? What was the answer on that?
2013.
Oh, okay.
How large ought the lot be? To be,
What?
to be conforming, how large would the lot have to be?
An acre by current
Just-
zoning ordinance.
And this is like a third of an acre?
It's like a quarter.
Quarter of an acre.
Yeah, quarter of an
Yeah.
acre. Now, the size of these other lots, what are they all like, Kevin?
What's that?
Size of the lot, like the last,
The ones on this side of the road all stayed about a quarter of an acre. And then these were like a third, and again, because the lake kind of goes around like that. So on this side, some of them are longer. So some of these, like this one's, you know, a third of an acre, and this one's a little more than that, and then it comes back up again.
Kevin, when
But the
you,
ones over here, they were all 100 by 100.
Kevin, when you were doing your research,
Mhm.
what is your conclusion about what this road is?
Well, I think it was always meant to be a right-of-way, as some type of, as an access to the, originally when it was done, it came out to this area. In fact, at one time, historically, at one point, this lot at the end, town line's right over here. And at one time, this lot was called Wendy's Ledge, because there's a ledge out there, was owned by the town. Town took it for taxes for somebody back in the 60s, I think it was, and then they conveyed it actually to people that own a budding lot. And that was, that right of way came to there. And I think it was, a lot of Loon Lake Road was kind of the same. We never have been able to find a really great layout of Loon Lake Road, to be honest with you. It's kind of more of a prescriptive thing than anything else. But that was meant to be the access for those lots.
I'm just wondering, would an alternative be to merge the two lots?
Okay. The problem with that is that comes up, then it becomes a septic problem. Because the state will allow a septic on these lots because they existed prior to 1969. If I merge them, they'll still only allow one septic. So the way they look at it is, as long as they predated their 69 ordinance, they will allow a two-bedroom septic. In fact, that's all that they will allow on any of those lots. Because the minimum you can do is two-bedroom, and that's the maximum that they allow on any undersized lot. But because they're lots of record that have existed for, these 70 years or something, they'll allow that. But if I merge them, they'll still only allow me one. So it's kind of trying to meet, different,
Dan, can I ask one?
Go ahead.
Hey, is this the same contractor that did the one down the street with the two garages on the same side of the road?
I don't know. I don't.
Or it isn't?
I don't know. I
It's
don't
just
know.
not so close to his.
I don't know. I don't know where they got those. I don't know who did the other one.
Good-looking place, yeah.
I can't.
Not yet. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, and I didn't know if I can read through the articles if you want. I've already given it to,
Go right ahead.
okay.
Go one at a time. People might have questions on each one.
Okay, all right. Okay. Granting the variance would not be contrary to public interest because an adequate buffer would still be maintained protecting this parcel adjoining properties, as the variance would be near the rear portion of the property. The building area within the setback is only 63 feet, and it wouldn't even be noticeable, and especially due to the terrain that's in there.
Do you have a written response from the neighbors?
I don't. I can get one. I thought, like I said, I thought Gary was going to be here, and I don't know if Brian's around, but they have, and we can certainly get those. And the other thing that, like I said, this has all been an in-step process. We actually, once we light on what this is going to be, then we're going to formalize the different easements, the well easement, the right-of-way easement, and each the radius easement and all of those. So that's the plan going forward. But I do, I can get something from everybody that says that they're in agreement.
Go ahead.
Okay, let's see. If the variance are granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed because that again, due to the topography and extending it back into the rear setback, it wouldn't interfere with any of the budding and property uses. And the other thing is, to that end, the buildings on, Brian has he has a septic approval. His building area is over here, and Gary's house is down here. This house is obviously down here. Gary has a garage here, and there's nothing, this is a large piece of, the Garguses own a large piece of land in the back, which is basically just wooded. So there's nothing, no actual buildings that are close to that side anyway.
Any questions on number 2?
Granting the variance would do substantial justice. It would allow the property owner to best utilize their property while not impeding or infringing on abutting properties. It would be keeping with other variances granted in the area due to similar circumstances.
Where are those?
Yeah, what are
What's
they?
that?
Where are
Where are
those?
those other variances?
Well, actually, Gargus has got one for a building down on, which is down more towards the corner of the road, if you will.
Okay.
They had I think that was I think they got at the time, they got a setback, they got a variance for the setback to the lake, I believe it was.
Okay.
And part of that was, I believe, I didn't do the variance, but I
Sure.
believe, but they got it, but I believe it was because of septic and something about an abutting use or abutting building or something like that.
Okay, thanks, Ken.
Anything else? Number 4?
Okay. If the variance are granted, the value of surrounding properties would not be diminished because the proposed building is of high quality and in keeping with the surrounding architecture of the area. It would not adversely affect the value of any of the surrounding houses, of which they are the closest abutter. The style and design is in keeping with those in the area. And again, the abutting owners have all worked in unison with them to facilitate this construction.
I have a question with that one. The property, it is on a lake, right? Which is
What's that?
The property is adjacent to the lake, right? And we're gonna be putting in a septic, so
Not this lot.
not the lot behind it though, right?
Right, yeah.
And it does-
This, like I said, this lot is here and that septic would be going in here.
Yeah, so it's not directly on the lake.
Right.
Somewhat those properties are really small though because it is on a lake, right? And so one of the things I think just is important to think about when you talk about the value of the surrounding properties, would it be diminished? Would it be diminished because of any negative impact that this kind of building would have on the lake? Because that's where this property gets a lot of its value from, right? So are you putting in more lawn or anything like that? I mean, another septic and adding more people does impact lakes, right? It does. That's all. So
Yeah.
have you thought about any impacts it would have on the lake or?
Well, again, this is gonna be just a studio, so it's a one-bedroom apartment, so, and it'll be everything, it'll actually, this septic system will be designed the same size as the 2-bedroom over here, because that's the minimum you can
do.
design. And so that'll have, that, other than the fact that there might be one more person on the lake, I don't think it would have
A major impact.
a major impact to that. And the
Well-
septic would be further back, so.
How about lawn? Like, I think because a lot of the runoff that comes from those kinds of properties along the lake is because of fertilizers on lawns and things like that. Would
Well,
would they
actually,
be putting any lawn on that lot?
well, they'll be putting some where they can. I mean, there's gonna be.
It's a small
between
lot.
Driveway, building, and this area over here. See, the other thing is, this lot actually goes to here. So this area on this side of the road is gonna remain the way it is, and which is,
Natural,
natural.
yeah.
And so their impact is basically going to be on this small area on this side of the road. The other thing that I will let you know to that end is, again, I said these things are going in, there's an order to these. We have to get a shoreland permit for that as well, okay? So in that, because of this, because of because of the existing road here, the building and their driveway, it exceeds it's like 36% lot coverage. Anything over 30% lot coverage and you have to employ one of those really expensive engineers to do a drainage design thing.
Yep.
So that will have to be done so that there isn't any increased, runoff or anything like that. And that'll be that's part of the shoreline permit that we'll have to get when we get to septic.
Are they allowed to take the stuff that's south of the road and include it in that density of?
Yeah. Because what they talk, the shoreline, the
road doesn't-
impervious just says what on the lot is impervious. And it counts the existing driveway and whatever they'll be doing here. Septic area, of course, isn't considered impervious, unless it was in the driveway. And then we calculated out, and I think it's like, it comes up to be like 36 or 38% of the lots. So anything over 30, you have to have an engineered plan to deal with that. So that is something that we'll be doing, but we got to find out how big our building is first. So.
What, number 5?
Again, owing to the special conditions of the property, I've always struggled with this one because I can't really understand what it says anyway, but no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property because. If you really know what that says, okay. But anyway, due to the size of the lot, the location of the existing driveway that services the parcel and the adjoining, that parcel and the adjoining one, and the limitation of the only available septic area on the lot, the proposed building location is the best fit in order to adequately develop the property and meet the spirit of maintaining adequate setbacks. That basically, we kept this one because there's building on this side. The encroachment we did was was on the one that the encroachment into the setback was on the side where there were no buildings.
Any questions on the hardship?
What's that?
I'm just asking them if they have any questions on the hardship issue.
And again, it's reasonable because it allows a lot to be developed and with the best configuration on the small property while, maintaining the rights of the adjoining properties.
Chairman, do you believe that the selectmen would issue a building permit for this?
I would think they would. And
The road is the issue, is it not?
what's that?
The road is the real issue.
Yeah, the road is the issue. And part of the, part of the problem with this is that, which June brought up, that RSA 674-41, which is really, in my opinion, was a lousy done, implemented. But anyway, they were trying to solve a problem of building on Class 6 roads, and some of these things became the unintended consequences of that. But, this clearly has been, this has been the road. This has been the access out to those lots for, I don't know how long. I mean, that road has been, the road was never constructed here where it was laid out. I think it's always been there. And that was the intent of it, was to provide those lots access.
And the physical road existed before the zoning ordinance was passed?
I wasn't here, but I believe it did, yeah. I mean, all indications were that it existed, because like I said, they came out, this lot existed in pre-60, even the town one, and this was the right-of-way to it. And they had conveyed those lots, and some of the, like this cottage is old, I think, and so that was the access to get there. And in fact, even this one, if you took the road right-of-way where it was originally done and you put 30 feet off, you're right through that building. So it's,
Okay.
As far as the granting a building permit, again, it goes back to the fact that, it's been a lot of record for 70 years. And you know, if I came in now and said I wanted to buy this and get a building permit, they'd throw me out.
You need to go to the planning board with this.
I don't believe I do. I don't know if there's anything, doesn't fall under site plan or anything like that. So, and the only question that, quite frankly, that I would have is, do we need a variance for the front setback?
Right.
And that would be a question that I'd probably ask the zoning board. So, and if we did, just for the record, it would be the same arguments. Yeah, so.
This is a tool.
Has the lad built anything on his property?
This
Does
is,
he have, he's got well, nothing on this one.
Okay.
He owns this lot over here too.
Okay.
Goes off the map.
So that lot
He does
looks-
have a garage here.
That lot looks about the same size as
It
this.
is. These lots, they started at, I think there's like at least 4 others that go in this direction that are the same size.
Same size.
They're all 100 by 100. And they're all, you know, kind of parallel, not square, so.
Peter?
I have a few questions. You
Of
mentioned.
course you do.
I'm being, yeah.
Okay.
So you mentioned there's, I think you called it unison or unanimous agreement with the landowners around.
Yeah,
Are those going to be recorded agreements?
yeah, they'll be,
Protect-
right,
run
because
with-
like I said, we're gonna have to go through and write up all the easements for all of these things. And, which will be the well, these, you know, the protected well radius, the shifting the right-of-way of the road, because they agreed, not these people, because they were the predecessors, but
And
they
what,
agreed to this and recorded those at the time too. That when they shifted this right-of-way from here over, these owners all recorded those easements to this. And we'll have to redo that to shift this down 5
So
feet.
you need a septic,
And we still need a septic, we need a septic?
septic agreement, a well agreement, and a road agreement,
Right, right,
all recorded.
right, yep. And beyond that, we will need a septic design approval and a
Oh,
shoreline.
yeah, that's separate. Go ahead.
did your applicant consider buying more land?
Yeah, they really considered it. The problem with it was that the neighbor didn't want to sell any more land, but he was good enough to give them a
Easement for the well?
easement. And the reason being is, and I don't, you know, he owns a lot of land all around there. He really did, you know, he's being very generous here, and I don't think, you know, I don't think he wanted to set a precedent, if you will. So, and, you know,
Sure.
yeah.
Two more questions. Did your applicant consider building a smaller structure?
Well, I'm sure they did, but they're getting down to the, as you go, getting a 2-car garage, they take 5 feet off it, and they're beginning to limit it to,
What would suit the land, maybe?
yeah, yeah, I mean, it's, yeah.
And they purchased it in 2013 with basically understanding all of these pre-existing conditions.
I assume, I mean, they bought these 2 lots in 2013. you know.
Last question.
Yeah.
Did they consider moving and reconstructing the road back where it was intended to be?
They talked about that, but again, by doing that, it encroaches on their existing house. And the other thing that happens there is because of, again, back to the shoreland regulations, there's an area that's supposed to be maintained natural in the woodland buffer area, and that happens to fall right on this side of the road. And it was the place where it is still natural. So that was part of the reason. And again, if we move this road back down to there, when you get to here, you run right through this existing ledge, and we looked at all these things. We looked at that, and Brian and Karen didn't want to do that and have to construct that through the ledge, and And again, this worked good for here, it gave them, it gave them adequate area behind, and this is the main house. This is gonna be, this is just gonna be the garage, and then, like I said, a studio, and they wanted to keep that area natural.
Final question. Would you say then, even with your client, despite them purchasing in 2013, likely understanding the pre-existing conditions, if the road were where it was supposed to be, and they built a slightly smaller structure, we likely would not need to grant a variance?
Well, they might get out of the back one, but if we determine this is a road, then we definitely, then they couldn't, there wouldn't be a buildable area.
Thank you.
Any other member questions? Okay,
David, we didn't do roll call, and we didn't vote on the minutes. So we could always vote on the minutes after, but you might want to have member roll call just for the record before we start voting on anything.
okay. Thank you. That's what I asked you to do. Thank you very much. For the
Just doing my
record,
job.
Stephanie? Tom?
Tom McLaughlin.
Present.
Peter?
Present.
David? We're all present.
Right.
It's a 5-member board.
Yeah.
And we can vote on the minutes after.
Yeah.
We just shouldn't forget it.
Can I talk?
You can.
Are
Okay.
we still in the
We're still in
asking
the,
questions?
Did you have a question? Go
No.
ahead.
No, I
we're
don't.
still in the board questioning the proponent.
Yes.
So the lot next door, is that gonna be a twin lot here? Are they gonna be in wanting do the same thing?
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, could be. I mean, I don't know what they plan on doing with that, but that's, these lots down along there and similar to ones, again, down around the corner are, all kind of in the same boat, no pun intended.
So they'd be in here looking for variance.
They could be. I don't, I
Right.
don't
I
know.
would-
Right. I mean, it would, and I know that, because I've surveyed some of those lots, I know they're already, and they're existing, but they're in violation of the present, none of the setbacks work. Those buildings are there, but they,
I kinda got a question for June. Can I ask June a question? Can I ask June a question? I'd like to know, this existing lot of record, doing septic systems, I've used that a lot. It was a great thing. It opened up some doors. Where does that go? Supposedly, he's got this, he figured this out for site loading, but does this mean that just because there's a lot, that they've got a right to build on that?
So the zoning ordinance does address non-conforming lots, which is what this is, because it's small, all right? So you can build on any non-conforming lot that existed, in this case predating the town adopting the zoning. That's why we asked Kevin to look at that. If we accept that it goes back to 1949, and zoning was adopted in 61, then it's an existing lot of record, and it's non-conforming. So you can build on it, provided you meet the other requirements, meaning setbacks in this case primarily. So they can't meet that setback, so that's why they're asking for the variance. There's a whole other issue, though, with this RSA 674-41 that is very confusing and difficult because it's state statutes supersede zoning, which require access to any lot by a road, basically. It can be a privately owned road, but just an easement doesn't make it a road. And it's very clear about that. So that's partly trying to find the record that showed there was a road there, but now that road's changed location, which even further confuses it. Clearly the statute doesn't apply well to here, but they would still need to have a waiver, as I understand it, at the very least, get from the select board. I just had a copy of a model that we have a waiver of any liability, waiving a waiver of municipal liability for not being able to get a fire truck in there, or they would have to transport kids to the nearest bus stop and that kind of thing. So that's the way it has been handled in the past. These lots are unique out there. There's another process that we probably should look at adopting at town meeting time to kind of allow building in this area to really clean it up properly on this kind of easement way, but we're not, town meeting's a long ways away. We haven't gotten there yet. So the statute's difficult, and it does supersede any local building requirements or anything else. So there is an added piece of it needs to be reviewed by the planning board to get that, planning board makes a recommendation to the select board when it comes time for that building permit. At first, you have to decide about the variance to see if they,
But June, couldn't we consider this a road and ask them to get a variance for the front part?
yeah, I think if,
That might take a lot of the problem away, wouldn't it?
yeah, I mean, if it's gonna be a road, it needs a front variance too. It's, so if it's not a road, then you can't use the statute to get the building permit. So it's sort of this, which do you want it to be,
Yeah.
Which does the town want? It's a very unclear
Yeah.
situation, so. We're doing, I've put actually a lot of time under this, and believe it or not, we've had some requests about other parcels that are accessed only by easement, and partly there's some interest in selling in other areas of town that, we're getting some pressure, well, I got an easement to get to that lot. I'm like, well, that's great, but you can't get a building permit.
Would the
But
physical,
that's another story elsewhere.
would the physical road have to change to be called a road?
It was where it was, so now where it is, or where they wanna move it back to, in essence, it bisects that lot, so it kind of creates almost two lots, and that makes it even more weird. So if it had stayed on the original layout from 1941, it would kind of put it, in alignment of a frontage and that kind of thing. So I don't really know the answer to that. I think it's so unique, we'll do the best we can with it and get the select board to issue some kind of
Peter?
waiver.
This, Brian's lot that's it, that's the dead end?
Yeah.
And you mentioned there are perhaps 4 others of similar geometry. You also mentioned you've surveyed many parcels. How many parcels are on Loon Lake Road?
I don't know, I'd be guessing, but probably.
20s or hundreds?
Oh, no, probably on that stretch of road down to the end of the lake, probably 25, maybe.
And of those 25,
Yeah.
of which we're seeing 4,
Yeah.
not quite 10%, does the road meander through those lots in a similar fashion as
Some
it
of them
does
it does.
with these?
Some of them, there's properties on both sides of the road. Yeah. These in particular, and I think there were, originally in this development, I think there were 13 lots. And they're not all built on, but,
Do they have an association out there?
no,
They don't.
no. I mean, not,
Yeah, I mean, it
not for
begs,
the road or anything, I don't
kind
know.
of begs the question about if these were all built out. I mean, it's a pretty small lake. I mean,
What's
that's,
that? Yeah.
kind of begs the question. I mean,
Well, the thing about it is most, if not all, and it's probably all, but of the lakeside lots are built on. And again, naturally, a lot of those were the oldest ones, which is why they don't meet any of the, the setbacks and things like that. I mean, if you've driven out there, you go along the road and some of the houses are right there.
I can do a screen share of the.
Okay, yeah, all right, yeah.
That would be nice.
And they are really small lots. So
They
I
are
could
small,
see
yeah.
the desire to put the garage on the backside.
Which is actually very typical of
Oh, look at that.
lake development at the
Yes,
time.
it is.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
She's got it up on the screen there.
So this is the tax map, so they're looking at these, this is the lot here.
Yeah.
The
well,
only thing I
so,
would
Yeah.
consider about the road is if this parcel, I don't know how many acres it is,
One,
but,
a little, there's a couple acres.
so by lot size, potentially this could be subdivided, but there's no, they would have to, depending on what their easement rights are, build a road,
Yeah,
up
actually-
all
and
the way
actually-
in, they're extending it in, that's where having that alignment is weird,
They,
It might have to be
yeah,
too
they,
close to
uh,
the lake, too.
yeah.
They already have a building permit for that lot. They
The
already have
back
the
lot.
septic design and everything else, so they got a building permit for that lot. And because of the configuration of that lot, it's very that it couldn't be subdivided and meet current state regulations. So that lot at the end had one of these other lots in it at one time.
I'd like to move to the public input. Those parties who are in favor, want to speak in favor of this? Dick, you wanted to talk? This is Dick Hage from Plymouth.
Yeah, I'm Dick Hage. I'm the father-in-law and father of the couple that own lots 9 and lot 5. The only comment I really had, it might have been you, David, who had asked Kevin a question about, in your research, what did you decide, or did you decide that it was a road or an easement right away? I think there are several things that maybe suggest that it's not a town road. It isn't maintained by the town. In fact, right at Gary's lot, there's a sign. I can't remember the wording on the sign, but it essentially says "End of Town Road." Amy and Anthony currently pay to have it plowed in wintertime. You couldn't turn a school bus around on that road. So I think those are three things that sort of suggest that the town, over time, does not perceive it as a road. But I don't know if that helps answer the question that you had.
Yeah, it's a little.
Anybody else want to speak in favor of the proponent? Anybody want to speak against the application?
You do have somebody on.
Yeah, is anybody online who wants to speak?
Is it okay for us to speak up or no?
You're part of the public, I assume.
I think so.
Oh, they're the owner. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Did you want
So
to be
I think-
included in the pro? I assume they're pro, right?
Well, I guess you're for it, aren't you?
I think so, yeah. Yes, we are for it. But I think, I don't know if our intention, and there was lots of questions about, when we bought and that we knew all of the restrictions and things like that. But I think part of the intention here is that we are relocating and moving up to the lake. And we're looking for a place to park our cars, and it's a pretty rough situation to have to park down below. We've been stuck in that driveway several times. So we would like to be able to park the car in a garage on, not on the slope side of the property. So that's part of where we're at on that. And there was questions about adding people to the lake. We're really looking for this to be a place for when our son comes back from college, he can stay there, because we're moving into a pretty small home on the lake. So we're not looking to impact the lake in any further way than we have been and enjoying the lake for the last several years.
Thank you. Any questions for Amy? No? Okay. There being no other, anything else you want to add, Kevin? All right, well, I'm going to move to the board's discussion on this matter. What are your thoughts, folks?
It's always good to hear Plymouth, the girls coming back to town. I like that.
If they built something smaller, they wouldn't be in here for anything, right?
What was that?
Well,
They built something smaller,
They wouldn't.
they wouldn't need
They
it.
wouldn't. I think
They
if
would
they
need a
built like a
variance.
one-car garage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think most families are a two-car family, right, especially if they work.
The structure itself is not excessive, but when placed on this postage stamp,
Yes,
it's enormous.
yes.
Um,
Small lot.
The road is certainly a significant pre-existing condition. They're certainly making, I would categorize it as extreme effort to make something work, given their lobbying with all the abutters and off-site well location and even rewriting the roadway or travelway, probably a better way to call it, easement. Perhaps if it were rotated 90 degrees, maybe it would fit. If parking was adjacent to the road, to the travelway, perhaps it would fit. There's a lot of perhaps, but everybody is entitled to their plan and their idea, and we could always be investigating other ways. That's not our purview, I don't think, but in its current configuration, I think they've got literally an uphill battle, not only here with this board, but with the other agencies they have yet to apply to, including Selectmen, Shoreland Protection, DES for the septic, even the well radius, the water supply. So it's a challenge.
Isn't the issue that we should stick to is they're asking to encroach on their uphill neighbor? Right. That's really the nub of the problem. The secondary
Confronting
problem
us, yes,
that we deal with.
yeah,
These other agencies are gonna take care of
all the other stuff.
whether the other thing. The only other struggle I've got is this category of the road. And in my view, the selectmen, in order to give a building permit, have got to resolve that issue, which could cause them to have to come back here again. And the issues are all the same the second time around. They've got this small piece of land, they're gonna build what everybody thinks, or I shouldn't say that, what seems reasonable for what they're gonna use it for. And all the neighbors agree.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Tom.
So if it's right of way, there's not a variance problem. If it's a road, then there is a variance problem, because they need a variance for the front. You'd have to have a setback.
Is that how you see it?
If it's a right of way, you don't have to get a setback. If it's a road, then you have to have a setback.
Right. However, RSA 674, and I put this on in italics on the kind of bottom part of their staff report.
Yeah.
There's a further part to this RSA that says that the street giving access to a lot means a street or way abutting the lot, which has the lot that has frontage. It does not include a street from which the sole access to the lot is via a private easement. So that's what this is. So therefore, and then it says easement or right of way, unless the easement or right of way meet a whole set of criteria, which this would not. So they're kind of caught within the select board can't, it's a state statute that the town can't override. However, I think it's been, there was another provision at town meeting, the town could vote to adopt, allowing building on these certain circumstances, like on islands. That's where there was a kind of a waiver given, but the town has to vote to adopt, to allow building permits that are only accessed by boat, say. And in essence, you think about this is kind of like that, So it's not, while it may be, it's not a town road. The town road ends, it's noted on the map there, so it's either a private road or it's not. And if it's a road, a private road, then it's a road. So you have this other problem. So it's like this weird thing,
I got another question. If they withdrew the residence in there and they just had a garage and they shrunk it down a little bit, would they have to be as immersed in this process?
Well, if they didn't have the residence, they probably wouldn't need the septic. And then they could merge the two, and then that,
Merge
but
the,
it's still kind of, they're still gaining access via an easement, so that part still is a problem.
it would still be a problem.
My interpretation of it, and it's difficult because I don't want to be the one,
I know, that's
to
what
tell
I'm
the
saying.
select board all this. Really, it's going to be them to decide, and they can
Yeah.
go by the RSA or not.
Well,
Based on a waiver. Others have gotten waivers for some building permits in that area, waiving municipal responsibility, but that is what's supposed to happen on a Class 6 road, which is a town road that's just not maintained, or a private road
yeah.
that doesn't meet certain.
But if you don't have an association out there that's picking up the expense of the road and everything, it's, how can
People
you?
work it out,
Yeah.
people typically work it out, and,
Yeah, they work
Yeah.
it out.
but there's no guarantee that, that the parcel, they all get along now, but 50 years
I
later,
know,
it could be
that's
different
right.
people, and somebody could drop a tree across, and they can't go out there, and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, that's why if somebody can't get in or out of there, it's kind of for them to work it out, we're not involved, but anybody that builds there is supposed to at least give some kind of waiver of, you can't get a fire truck in there because the road's gated and blocked, then you're on your own, So,
Peter?
If we presume the town road ends here,
yes,
and this is a common driveway
yeah,
or similar,
yeah.
then
It's in
Does this-
essence what it is,
does this board actually have jurisdictional authority to accept or receive this application?
Well, they still have to meet, they're asking for a variance for that setback.
They still need the
regardless, that's
setback
still
problem
there.
at the
Okay.
back of the lot.
Yeah, which is
Okay.
what they're applying for.
So the setback problem is an issue regardless if this is a common drive or a town road?
That's all they've applied for
Okay,
in their application, is the setback in the back,
okay,
the part that's shaded there,
correct.
okay? My personal view is that there's a bunch of lots there. They were created before we had any rules,
Yeah.
and we shouldn't deprive the people of the reasonable use of their property.
Correct.
But that's for the board to decide. Given what you've heard, do you want to rebut any of the information that we've talked about?
No, I don't want, no. The only thing, again, and I probably shouldn't speak for him, but, and I don't know, because like I said, Brian got a building permit for his lot, which is actually on the end of that, whatever, right away,
Whatever it is.
driveway, whatever it is. And I don't think, I don't know that, but I don't think he had to sign any
Waiver?
waiver. But I do know that that's a common vehicle in the town's use and that, and which I actually think if they'd done that originally, they wouldn't have had to mess up RSA 641, 41, so that was what it was what do we do when we don't have a town road with a piece of property?
Thank you. All right, I'd like to close the public hearing, and we'll go to findings of fact. All right. We'll start out with, this is a non-conforming lot
All right, 0.26 acres.
that was created back in 1949 with, well, the second one would be, there's access through, what do you want to call it?
Right away?
Private right-of-way.
Right away. It's in the agricultural zone as well.
Okay, June, give June a chance, so
Sorry.
she's right away.
I got it, go.
Okay. They're going to have, I offer this, there's going to be other approvals that have to be given. And I would add, I'd want a condition that we get documentation of a septic easement and a well easement, and I guess the road easement, those three things, which could be recorded along with any approval.
The right-of-way has moved.
In 2012, right?
Is that when they changed it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They changed the right of way to follow Loon Lake Road in 2012. And so,
This is one that Tom always liked.
in
Nobody
all-
came to speak against it.
Nobody paid for the chief against it.
That's true.
They bought the lot in 213, is that it, or 215?
13.
These are two separate lots owned by the same owners.
And there's a sign up there that says the end of town road. I like that.
I love that too, I know.
I did see that.
I would also state that the condition of the lot has created some challenging building.
Physical condition.
Physical conditions of the lot have some challenges for the current owner. It has made it difficult for them to develop that lot.
Oh, so, okay. So you mean all the deeds in the road and the whole global situation there, huh?
Yeah, well, in the ledge too.
Yeah, okay.
I think the ledge was part of
So
it.
there are development constraints.
There's roughly several other lots, maybe 10 or 11 other lots about the same size.
Might face the same problem.
Really? There's like 10 or 11 of them?
Yeah.
There's at least 6 in this.
Yeah.
I would also say another fact is that it's only going to have one bedroom up above, so it's a pretty small apartment.
Okay, it's kind of a minimum residential use, is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
I would add less than minimum. The state would allow you to build a 2-bedroom. They're proposing 1 bedroom.
Right.
Not excessive.
Well, this really is not an accessory building, but it's on its own separate independent lot.
Could be sold separately.
Yeah, it could be. It could be sold separately because it is a different lot. If the 2 lots were joined, I think
And they can't do
you
that.
couldn't sell them, the back lot, but you could sell them separately.
I think we want to put in the previous one that there is ledge on the property that they've had to deal with.
There is ledge, yeah.
The only question that I would have about selling it, David, though, would be, does that back lot have a deeded right-of-way to the lake? Right, because if it has a deeded right-of-way to the lake, then that makes it profitable, right? Then when they sell their house, they could sell it. But if it doesn't have deeded access to the water, nobody's gonna wanna buy that separately, right?
Well, I don't know, they're sold all the way up along there. There's,
Even with
there's-
no access to the lake?
well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of these old lots of records there I see that, that I saw
Yeah.
a couple of
It
places.
would definitely not make it as desirable.
No, they would not, no, I agree with you, yeah, that's like, it, so the lot doesn't have access to the lake.
I don't know
It's
that.
not through hers.
It doesn't look like it to be, but,
Okay.
I don't know, that might be a process that they could go through and do that, but they would have to go through legal access.
Not
and
for us
stuff.
to worry about.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I got like 10 things here.
Okay.
I've heard the proposed construction is within the 250-foot shoreland setback.
He did say something about that.
It's on the plan, but I don't think anybody's put it as a finding of fact yet.
Let's do that.
The, setback
Oh, okay.
protection act. Oh, yeah.
It's behind the 150.
Oh.
But yeah, between 150 and 250.
Folks, if we look at what the proponent put forward for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in their application,
Yes.
any part of that we don't agree with?
Good.
No.
Thank you.
Well, let's go through them. Number 1, not contrary to the public interest. Well, I think it is, personally, I think it's in the public interest that you can build on your land.
Agreed.
Agreed.
True.
How do you feel about that, Peter?
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, okay. Sorry, you didn't get a chance to look at those.
It's the first one, granting the variance would not be contrary to the
Public
public
interest.
interest.
Agreed.
Okay. We're all agreeing with number one, both for the reasons stated here as well as the fact that they own a lot and ought to be able to build on it. Number two, the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. And they say because the topography of the property extending back corner of the building 5 feet into the rear setback would not interfere with any use of the abutting property. And the setbacks are to protect the neighbors. Here, the neighbor is in agreement. I think we should state that the neighbor is in agreement of that encroachment on their use of the property. How do we feel about that, Steph?
True?
Don?
Yep.
True.
True.
True. It's unanimous. Granting the variance would do substantial justice. Well, that's interesting.
I have a whole class on what justice is here.
Yeah. Is it fair? I guess we should say.
Yes, is it fair?
Best
That's a better word. I think it is fair. It's true.
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 True?
True.
If the variance were granted, the values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. And then they go on to talk about the high quality of the property, the architecture and the like, and the design. The encroachment here is on the back. And if it's going to diminish anybody's property, it's going to be the uphill neighbor.
Agreed.
And
No complaining.
they've agreed to whatever it is.
Agreed.
True.
I think it's true.
True.
True? The hardship is always a tough one, because the way it's worded,
Yeah, it's a tricky word.
next to impossible to understand.
I know. It's a hard one.
From my perspective, if we assume that people have a right to build on their property, the fact that the lot was created back in the 40s and was substandard, and the slope almost creates a hardship. Tom, what do you think?
Hey, I'm on board, Dave. We're cool.
I don't know.
I agree.
I think personally, I think given the agreements they've got from their neighbors,
It's true.
they've conquered the hardship in this
It would be
problem.
unnecessary hardship. I mean, they did talk about their cars getting stuck, and that is a hardship, right? It really
Background's
stinks
a
to not be
hardship.
able to get out of your driveway.
Well, it has to be created by the physical limitations of the lot, and the lot's too small.
Yes.
Right.
It is,
They've
they are
overcome-
small lots.
They've overcome that with agreements with the neighbors.
They have.
True.
True.
Steph?
That was true.
Peter? What do you think?
And
What do you think, Peter?
True.
Okay, I'll go true too then.
Need a motion, David, then?
right.
You gonna make a motion, Stephanie?
Sure. So I'll, motion to, accept the application and grant the variance to the
Yep.
application as written.
Move to approve the thing as written. Great. I'll second that.
Any conditions that we want to put on it before we approve it?
I think you had spoken, David, about
I did, yeah.
a couple of conditions about some information coming back to us.
We had three things that we've been promised.
Septic, the well, and the
Well easement, the septic easement, and the road easement,
road easement.
subject to those being created and recorded along with the approval. Beyond that, they gotta get approval from the selectmen and the state, and
Yeah.
So what is it to get, we're gonna approve it with the condition that they're gonna get all of the approvals required?
yeah.
Do you want them to just work with staff on,
Yeah,
so you don't have to, they don't have to come back to the board? You trust us to?
Of course.
The only thing would be if the selectmen deny them the building permit because of the road, they'll have to come back here at some point for a second variance dealing with the front setback.
Right.
All right. Steph's made a motion, and
I
Tom
second it.
seconded
All right. All in favor?
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's granted.
Great.
So, nice job, Kevin.
Welcome back. Glad to get your daughter back. This
I'm
is
glad I
great.
don't sit in your chair.
We still have a little business to do before we break.
Oh, we do.
Oh, we're just gonna do the minutes, right?
Just so you'll know, Steph, I was attempting to follow the requirements as set out by
Sorry, I didn't catch it earlier.
the ZBA meeting.
I love that too. I'm gonna keep
But
this.
it doesn't have attendance on there.
Garvey.
Those things.
Thanks.
So small.
All right. Do we have any correspondence that we have to deal with?
Okay, good night, Kevin.
I'm gonna,
Good night, Dick.
I get a question.
Okay. So we're doing these minutes from the joint meeting?
Yeah, I did review them ahead of time. Does anybody else?
Rich was just cruising along pretty smooth until David Kent came on and threw out about 10 issues on him there.
I did all in one.
That got him going.
It was 110 degrees where I was
Oh
sitting.
my God. Well, you brought it on. It was great. Everybody else was just kind of chewing around there. And I think we said a lot of things. I like
I
it.
really liked the one, you know, when I read back over them, David, that one issue in there that you suggested, what was it that you called it? What was it?
Inspection
It was
for
like
all
it was a
properties.
bonded, something
The
bonded.
bond for the environmentally sensitive stuff.
Yeah, I really like that idea. I think that could be
No, we're still
a
discussing.
really good way for
Haven't
the
done that yet.
town
What
to hold people
you-
accountable.
you- bonding for environmental sensitive areas.
Yeah, so
Can I
this
have-
is basically.
let's start this way. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Yes, so moved.
And now let's discuss any changes that have to be made, or additions or deletions.
I did not see any.
I didn't see it either.
You think anything will happen, June? With any of those ideas?
I don't know, we'll see. The planning board approved the minutes already, so you guys have to
Oh,
also.
they already approved them? Okay.
So if you change them, I have to take them back.
Okay,
Let's not
well,
change them.
so she made a motion
All
to
in
approve.
favor, right?
Yeah, aye.
Aye.
All in favor? Great.
Which? What do you think?
What's that?
The minutes
Approve the
good?
minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, the minutes are approved.
All right.
Thank you.
Any
good.
correspondence that we have to deal with?
Nope, nothing else.
Great.
Great. All right, make a motion, we adjourn.
Wait, do you have anything? No, okay. Okay.
Thank you, June, for all your hard work.
All in favor of adjourning? Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, folks.